Okay, you understand though that in Springboro we were projecting a $30 million deficit, and because of that, there were threats that all this stuff was going to disappear. And you understand that today we have a $10 million surplus without that money. So the $30 million disappeared, and we have a surplus of money, and we added AP courses. So it's hard for me to believe that the finances are bad and that it's not just manipulation to make life difficult and less academically rigorous on purpose. Now, I understand you don't agree, but I've witnessed it. I've witnessed the manipulation of the information and the budget. Maybe all schools don't do it, but I've seen it, and I've seen them cut things that didn't need to be cut because they needed to make us look like we needed the money. I've seen them bump up class sizes to make a point, which they later admitted that was to make a point, to make things look more severe than they really were. So at the IB program, in my school, we haven't put it in there yet because we have AP. And I didn't realize that it's global programming, right? And it's instead of AP.
Actually, the AP classes are in preparation for IB classes. As a sophomore,
So
AP classes.
they still have them.
Get into
Okay.
over and over the other school.
So they still have AP.
Over the other school. We're in a different school. She had to go over there. The AP classes in sophomore year prepare her for the IB classes junior and senior year.
So you have multiple buildings offering high school. Okay.
For that, it's a different district because this district does not offer upper level.
So you have to go to an open enrollment district and take those classes?
Yes, ma'am.
So it still is a global, pretty much a global coursework. Uh-huh. Go ahead.
I think what they're highlighting is that districts, when money problems have occurred, and with this profound emphasis on teaching to the test for minimal proficiency, we've actually dumbed down the curriculum and cut many of our AP rigorous classes that so many kids who are proficient and aren't at risk to your funding aren't addressed effectively. That's the issue. I mean, I'm older than this. I'm a school psychologist who's been retired. This is my 4th year. I'm out. I'm listening to this and watching this and knowing the fantastic AP classes there were in the Medina City schools that are no longer there. My son didn't have to go to Firestone High School in Akron to get AP classes. He had all the AP classes at the high school and ended up in the honors courses at Ohio State. But if you don't do rigorous prep work, and you have funding attached to these minimal proficiency scores, and then you have a whole bunch of housing developments from Cleveland Metropolitan Housing that are down here in Medina, where you have kids move in 5th grade, you can't read and no one has ever taught them.
Are you suggesting that the problem is money? We just don't have enough money?
I'm saying that when there's test pressure, that the focus of the curriculum gets neglectful to the upper ends.
To the gifted students, perhaps.
Correct.
Or the upper end of the
That's my
continuum.
perspective as I listen to this.
Well, there's no doubt that when you have a money crunch, and that's not taxpayer fault, that's spending problems within the district. That is. That's spending problems. We have spending addicts. Districts have become spending addicts.
Did Medina just lose over $250,000 to a superintendent?
Well, I don't want to talk about that. That sounds like that's a sore spot. But we have spending problems within districts. So we've really shorted the children and the children's needs because we have funneled money a different direction. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Absolutely. How about when we're done, though? Because I need to get on with this stuff. Can we go on to the next one? Okay. The IB programs are committed to change children's values. That came right from their own documents, the people that are writing it, so that they think globally, teaches children to be global citizens, promotes human rights, social justice. Again, that came directly from their documents, the people who wrote the goals, and the need for sustainable developments. I think we all know what that means. One objective is to desensitize children to unthinkable acts. And we're talking about morality for the most part. I think we're desensitized kids to that already. We talked about that before we got in here, about abortion. These are not Core subjects necessarily. Next slide, please. Okay, what the experts say. Well, James Milgram, the only mathematician on the validation committee, refused to sign off, stating that the standards were heavily influenced by special interests and would significantly reduce expectations of our students, putting them 2 years behind other states in math and other countries. Sandra Stotsky, she was the one that developed the standards for Massachusetts. She took Massachusetts from a family school district to the leader in the nation. Her standards did. She said on the ELA, she was on the ELA validation committee, rated Common Core as a D. Simply empty school skill sets is what she said. College readiness was at the 7th grade level. Okay, and this is a YouTube presentation that if you get a copy of this, I want you to click on this YouTube presentation and you'll see everything I'm talking about and all of the reference materials that go with it. Everything I've talked about so far. Next slide, please. Why would Ohio bypass piloted, tested, proven standards to adopt this national standards that open all of our children to this UN agenda? President Obama's children's school will not adopt Common Core. And again, when you click on this video, the woman talks about how she called the school district where his children are, and the school district said we will not be adopting Common Core. Okay? Ohio, pay attention, either stop Common Core or forget you live in a republic. Anti-American theme to Common Core. Next slide, please. Okay. The solution is easy. Adopt standards that are rated by Fordham to be higher than Common Core, which would be, or Ohio's, which is a C. Tennessee, Texas, Massachusetts, Indiana, District of Columbia, and California. Raise expectations by raising the cut scores of the current standardized tests. Allow school choice to increase competition and free markets to hold the system accountable. It does it just as a matter of the free market. And teachers, you must be aware of what this means to the teaching profession. We must keep education locally controlled. Okay, so I'm sure I have volumes more to say, but go ahead. I'll just take questions now.
I had a professor right at school back in the 60s made a statement one day in class: if I wanted to take over a nation, I would do it through a testing program. That was 40 years ago. We're coming to that point right now. You gotta believe it, whether you want to or not. This whole thing is power-driven, has nothing to do with education.
I believe you. I believe you.
And two other very quick comments. You mentioned about colleges having to offer all those remedial courses. And the former school superintendent and the professors jumped in about that, saying, what are you teaching these kids down there? We have to offer all these remedial courses. My answer was simply, we teach them what best to send us.
And that's implying that the teachers are not performing.
You're going to get to the root of a lot of the education problems. You're going to have to go back to the colleges of education. And you're going to have to toughen up the standards for those who are going to become teachers. One of the problems right now for third grade reading guarantee, we don't have enough teachers certified to teach it.
They what? Say that again. They don't let a teacher certify the teacher?
They're changing some of the language now so that the elementary certified teacher can teach reading, even though she may not have the full reading standards.
I didn't think that was true. I wasn't sure about that. I'd have to ask our curriculum director, but I thought they had to be, there has to be a certain certification and a certain license to be a third grade reading teacher.
That is true.
Okay.
But now there's a shortage of those people. So in order to meet that standard, they're going to lower the bar, you might say. We've got to go back and do a better job of training our teachers that are coming out of the colleges.
Okay.
The College of Education, I think, I could be a little more selective. Another thing is that we have lowered the bar considerably for who can get in college.
That's interesting. And you're a former superintendent?
Yes.
What do you think of Common Core?
I'm here.
Well, we have others here that disagree, so...
No, I agree with 99.9% of what you're saying.
Okay.
Actually, this is the second time I've heard your
And you know what?
presentation.
I admit I could be wrong on some things, and I said that to Connie. I said, you know what, let me get you some experts. And Connie said, nope, you're the one. I said, no, there are people who know more about Common Core, let me get those for you. She said, nope, you're the one. So I am here, but I'm doing my homework quickly because I don't want to be one of those enemies. I don't want to be the apathetic person. I don't want to be the person that doesn't know this. And I still have 2 children in public schools, and I'm scared of
Publicize
them.
this publication. You're right down the line of what you're saying.
Yeah. What is that?
Eagle Four.
Education reporter.
Bill Shackley, conservative, all the way. The whole thing is about education.
So you're saying pretty much what I'm
It's about once a
saying.
month.
Yeah. Most of the literature I'm reading is just absolutely opposed to this national movement,
Yeah.
this federal movement. And, I wanted to let the next person speak so you guys can ask him questions too. Just barrage him. It's okay. This is Bob Lattimore. Bob, can you give them a little
I don't, well,
bio?
Sure.
Sure.
I don't want to say much.
Maybe what we can do is have them, if you have questions, after Bob speaks, you can ask either one of them, and we'll just have both of them up there.
Connie, I think you
Yes.
can use your...
Okay, yeah.
I'm not going to say much. I think I'm mainly here to help answer questions. My background, I've been in education issues for about 20 years. I work with Eagle Forum, and I'm on the board of the Ohio Eagle Forum, and I also have a new organization called Citizens for Directed Public Education. Back in the early 90s, when my kids were starting school, we sent our first son to public school, and he stayed there 3 years, kindergarten, first and second grade. Then we decided that there was enough difference in opinion as to what they were teaching and what I wanted to teach that we homeschooled him. Second child came along, and we sent him to Christian private schools all during his career. So that's where sort of I stand. I totally agree that the more school choice we have for parents, the better off we'll be, and that in the long term is the best solution to the problems that we experience in public education, give the parents choice. Kelly has covered Common Core very well. I think the main objection I have is the federal control. Whenever anything goes to Washington, the control stays in Washington, and the regulations come down to the states and to the individual districts, and that's just not the way the system should work. Control should be local, and the person that has the most control should be the parent. And that's not going to happen with a federal system like Common Core. So that's my main objection. In Ohio, we were hoodwinked into buying into it. We covered this very well. We're having a discussion now across Ohio that we should have been having in 2009 and 2010 before this Common Core came into being. The reason we didn't have that discussion back then is simply because we didn't know about it. It was run through by the governor and the State Board of Education with very little public input, and that's why we're in the mess we're in now. And when something is started at the federal level, it's very hard to do anything to get rid of it. And that's where we're at. But politically, I wanted to say something about what we can do and what is happening in Ohio. There are many concerned legislators in Columbus who have heard from their constituents. I would urge you to write them and tell them to keep working on it. I think at this point, the best thing that can happen is for the General Assembly to stop implementation of Common Core at the current time, hold legislative hearings, study the issue, study the costs, and come up with proposals for the future. And I think the best that we can hope for is a suspension or a rejection of any future implementation of Common Core that is not already in place. it's going to be virtually impossible, at least for a few years, to get rid of what's already in place. Unfortunately, a lot of it is underway and in place. It's a 4-year plan to implement in Ohio, and we're in the second year. And a lot of money has been spent already. And it's hard to stop that kind of momentum. But what we need to do is get the legislature to stop the program at the current time, stop its implementation, study it, and get the public input that should have been gotten 3 years ago, and decide what to do with Common Core in the future. And I think that's a very practical thing to do. I know there are a lot of legislators in Columbus that want to do something like that. We first thought it might get in the budget bill, but it's not going to get in the budget bill. The budget bill will be passed in the next couple of weeks. But the legislature is open all year essentially, and so it needs to happen this year before we get any further along. That's really about all I want to say. I think it'd be better if Kelly and I answered your questions at this point.
And Texas just outlawed Common Core and C-Scope. They actually have a law now where they ban both of them.
Of course, Texas never adopted Common Core in the first
No, but
place.
they put C-Scope in its place, which is almost identical, or worse. Some people say it's worse. But according to David Barton, have you heard David Barton speak? I was on the phone with him the other day. I was grateful for the conversation, but he was very helpful to me in helping me understand some of what I presented here. And he said that Texas has completely done away with Common Core. They will have nothing to do with it. Do you have a question?
I have two in my daughter.
Okay.
I really don't understand at all how this affects homeschoolers. And the other thing is, if Ohio wanted to get out, A, how do they, and B, what's the penalty because of all the millions of dollars they receive?
I think that's very stressful for them to think about, one, repayment of a couple $100 million. Two, they have to have something in its place to reapply for the waiver. And that's what they're scrambling for. And I don't think they really want to do that. But if enough Ohioans say, get out and find something else, then they'll have to find something else. I don't know. I mean, we're not responsible for the disaster we're set up for. So I'm not sure we have to dig ourselves out. Our legislators need to fix that problem that they created.
Do you take state tests now?
No.
Then you won't have to under Common Core.
So this won't affect me if I don't take the state test?
It will affect you in the sense that almost all kids around the country are going to be in the Common Core program.
Well, no, my understanding is everybody will take part. That's what they told
I
us.
don't think homeschoolers will.
I'm pretty sure.
But, no.
Because right now, like, I have a choice to have a certified teacher to evaluate her and write out the letter. I don't have to take testing, and I refuse to take state testing. I understand that.
Now, you might run into the situation in college entrances, and they may require certain
Sure.
tests.
Sure, but she's only going, right now. I know.
But eventually, the college, depending on which one, may require certain tests.
I think that's a good question, and we do need to find the answer about homeschoolers, but I thought I understood that all students will take the park exam.
I don't think that will apply to homeschoolers. It doesn't now, and I don't think it will.
It's a
That's
good
my
question.
opinion.
We need to find out for you. Yeah, I'm trying to do that.
Most of us in this room are represented by probably the most powerful politician in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have the speaker, we have the speaker of the House as our representative. He can control many more things even than the governor can.
Have you
We
spoken?
need to contact him. We all talk about it and very few do it.
Bill Batchelder is, in some sense, a really great guy. He's very conservative, but he has allowed people in his office who are not so conservative. And it's hard to work with some of them, I'll tell you that. But Bill himself, his heart is in the right place, no
He
question
moves
about it.
again if you put enough pressure.
I want to say that I
he needs to change some of his staff members that aren't as conservative as he is.
And I also want to say that he was invited to this meeting and couldn't make it because he was invited to attend this meeting. We did invite him, but he couldn't make it. And he was also extended invitations to the next 2 meetings, which he also can't make as well.
I know that he agrees with many things we're talking about here tonight, but Bob says there's others around him that may not feel that strongly about it. You need to talk to him.
You have to keep communicating and let them know what Ohioans think about Common Core. Back here in the purple. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we did. Go ahead. Ask your question.
I was wondering why Mr. Bob didn't homeschool his second child or private school his first child.
We homeschooled the first child and sent the second child to a private Christian school. I think that's very much a parental decision. Depends on your family situation and a lot of factors. I think that kids can succeed in public schools, but if you're a Christian parent and you send your kids to public schools, you've got to be very vigilant. You've got to look into the curriculum and make sure you're on the same page. And if they're giving material that you don't agree with, you've got to correct your children. I think we decided for ourselves that it was best that we send either homeschool or send our child to a private school where we knew that they would get the Christian principles that we wanted instilled. My second son just graduated from high school, university, had majored in religion, and he's studying for the ministry. And that's precisely what I would like for him to do.
Just real quick, there's a bunch of information on the back table, and also we have a sign-up list. And Claire, who's the sign-up list? Is that for Kelly, or who's the sign-up list for? Yeah.
There's a sign-up list there if you want to continue to be informed about Common Core, what the progress is, what needs to be done, if calls need to be made. So there's a sign-up sheet where you can print your name and include your email address. But again, a lot of that information can also be found on the websites that you have on your handout.
Now is really the time where we need to get the legislature involved and make them do something. If we don't do it in the next few months, it's not going to happen.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not a microphone speaker, so. Okay, as far as with private schools and Catholic schools, are they subject to the OTES and what was the other one? The principal evaluation?
OTES and OPES. That's a great question, and I don't know the answer. Does anybody else in here know if private schools will use those same instruments? You know?
At St. Mark Lutheran School, we use the Ohio Standardized Test so that we can prepare the kids, because our school goes to 8th grade, so that the kids are prepared to go into high school, whether it be parochial high school or public high school. And then that way, also, parents who decide to come to St. Mark, by the way, you're all welcome. But parents who decide to come to St. Mark, they can grade us on some kind of central system, so that, we don't have some wacky test that they come in and they go, we don't know where you are in education, we don't know how you guys rate, and that's the reason that we take the Ohio Standardized Test over there.
Is that a mandatory thing, or is that what you're supposed
No.
to do?
Before that, we had taken a whole different set of testing. But the past couple of years, we decided to use the Ohio Standardized Test.
Okay.
But don't forget, parents, we're at home. I was going to pay my daughter when she was in class. She went to OU. I was going to pay her to stand with a sign when Obama came, against Obama on her campus. And she had class at the time that he was speaking. And don't forget, we have the power because we can teach our children the correct values. And both of my children know exactly what's going on in our world. And you know what, we're parents and we've got to be there to teach them. And that way they can go through high school and still be good Christian examples as well as be knowledgeable and be able to pick out those things that are wrong in the things that they're learning, and they can raise their hand and question their own teachers. And that's what we want to raise, is
Absolutely.
critical thinkers.
Absolutely, and my kids do the same. I almost have to deprogram them many times when they come home because they'll tell me, luckily they're alerted to the issues, just like yours, and they'll come home and say, well, my teacher said this, and we'll give them the whole rest of the story or the other side of the story, and it is frustrating to have to do that, but I think that everywhere you're going to have to do that. Even in the Christian schools, I'm sure there's an orientation one teacher might give that you want to supplement them when they get home. So I'm not saying that they're, but I was grateful when my son came home and said, hey, my teacher talked about global warming today, man-made global warming, and my teacher said that actually there's a body of scientists that believe that it's just the cycles of the sun. So I was glad that that teacher gave the different sides of the science, but I was just hoping that all would do that, but I'm not sure if they do. But did you have another question?
Yeah, sorry, really quick. Do you know where we can, or who would we go to find out? Because that's what I'm having a really hard time with. My kids go to Catholic school, and I'm just getting the runaround with the diocese.
You know, and I go to
They
the
won't
Ohio
have
School
one.
Board.
Does anybody else
Deb
have
Turhart,
Catholic school kids?
pardon?
Does anybody else have Catholic school kids? Okay, well, the diocese, I mean, literally will not meet with us. They've told us they will not meet with us.
So she wants to know more
I'm trying
about.
to find out who we can go to. Is it somebody at the ODE, or would it be the school board, the state school board? Or
I think your school can answer whether they use OTES or
I
OPES.
think they, well, those questions they can
Yeah.
answer, but I've got
Okay.
we got like a ton of them, you know what I mean, like
I don't know why they're
questions.
not willing to meet with you and answer those.
Yeah, I know. I got a list. Well, you know, and as far as controversial issues, how are they going to be handled down the road, things like that, you know. The sex ed standards, things like that. Thank you.
But that is social studies, and so far those shouldn't change.
No, they're not.
Okay.
But I mean, I've seen the upcoming sex ed standards.
Oh, those are changing. I think you're right.
In the future,
I think you're right.
yeah, it's on the-
And you know what?
It's on the www.commoncore.com,
Okay.
and it's at the very bottom of Show Me the Evidence, More Evidence. At the very bottom of the page, they got future standards, and I've got them all highlighted.
Yeah, I've had good luck with Deb Turhart, the president of the Ohio School Board, and then Tom Dunlop, the vice president of the Ohio School Board. They've both been pretty good about answering my questions. But also, I think C. Todd Jones would answer.
So the school-
but Jones
Okay, so
will answer your question.
We actually know. what
Those
we
people
apply to.
are great. Also, there's a phone number on ODE.
Yeah.
I've called that many times and asked questions. So I think those are some really
Okay.
good sources to try to get your questions answered. I'm surprised your school won't need us to.
Thank you. Right, too.
That's the complaint. But the Ohio School Board has indicated to us that each school district will dictate the curriculum. The problem is that if Pearson owns all of the publishing companies, where do we go for a curriculum that's not Common Core compliant? And if you don't adopt Common Core compliant materials, then you're setting your students up to fail the standardized tests. What district would be willing to do that? None. So even though the Ohio School Board people told us you can opt out, I said, okay, seriously, you're telling me that as Springboro Board President, I can say, Springboro, let's not adopt Common Core, let's go our own direction. So we would have to find the materials to, let's say, Hillsdale Classical Style Learning. But we're going to have to take the park exam, aren't we? And he said, yeah. So we won't be ready for the park exam. So no, we can't opt out. It's silly to say that we could opt out. That's not, only if we want to fail, and that's not going to happen. My daughter just Thursday night was awarded because she got 5 out of 5 on the OGTs. You think I'm going to set up any of our students to fail those standardized tests? That would be silly. Of course not. We're all going to be Common Core compliant, and even the private schools are going to be Common Core compliant because, again, they're telling me in much of the literature I'm reading about the private schools, that they don't want to fail the park exam either. So even though they don't want to adopt Common Core, they can't afford to fail the exam because they'll be shut down. Money. You see with clarity. Yeah, you see with clarity what I do. Yeah, I agree. Did you have a question?
So those private schools will have to take the park exam as well.
That was my understanding.
And the homeschoolers,
That was
just with
my
the
understanding.
HCP SATs?
The homeschoolers are not required to take state tests.
At this point, possibly.
And I'm not sure how many park tests private schools. I don't think that